too and weigh in, you sure can. Okay, so we're going to start this off. This kind of addresses holistically that judging criteria that is not necessarily part of your job. There are a lot of things that we, as we're watching this show, potentially our mind wanders to. And so before we get into the actual ballot criteria, I want to hit on things that are kind of out of our control because they're being addressed in other ways. The first is the rights, production rights. Now, Taryn did a great job of going over this earlier. The NSAA is going to have copies of production rights. Those production rights, they're going to vary year to year, play to play. I even tried to get rights for a play last year that I know schools did 20 years ago, but then those production rights were taken away when I tried to get them. So as a judge, that's not your job. If a school is performing a show, please know that they should have all of those rights, and that shouldn't be questioned by you as a judge. You perform what comes on the stage as it is seen. And if you have questions for these as I go through, I kind of don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to zoom through a lot of things here. Good? All right. And then your activities director, they need to submit the appropriate protocol to the NSAA that we have those rights. And then like Taryn said earlier today, you're going to upload PDFs this year of your rights or have statements that say, I wrote this play, or it's in the public domain, so on and so forth. So, all well covered. Time limits. So, per the NSAA rules, a play needs to be at least 30 minutes and 30 seconds. And a show should not be downgraded if they were only 17 minutes. You're judging the criteria of the production put in front of you. That time should not be a varying piece to your judging criteria. Questions there? All right, then of course we've already hit on this a little bit earlier, but the things that are outside of the school's control, like you cannot control someone's phone, you can't control the facility issues, you can't control the audience that's around you. I've definitely said some things to audience members if they were being, not appropriate during a production. But again, that should not impact the performance that is on the stage in front of you as a judge. You kind of have to put all of that out of your head and just put the show in the context that it is as it's presented. So, gentle reminders. Cast and crew size, we addressed this earlier. You guys did a really good job of doing that. A show is not inherently better because it has more students on the stage. I have seen phenomenal shows with 5 people. And I've seen phenomenal shows with 50 people. And it really is, what do those kids do when they're in front of you? And is everyone invested when they are presenting that production? I think we all know if you worked with lots of kids, there is Sally Sue over here that might not be at the same level as Joe. And how do you, as a director, get them to be at the same level? So you've got to look. There's a lot to look at when there's a lot of kids on stage. But is everybody who is acting at the same level? But just the size of the production does not make a better production. All right, so all of those things not under ballot. You can say that they did a great job with what they did based on who was on the stage, but you are not judging one show better because they have more. All right, second instruction, again, addressed earlier today, that school, it is a courtesy to get those sets on and off the stage in an appropriate amount of time. It is not something that you will downgrade them for because they might have taken a lot more time than what was allotted. That, as a school, I would suggest highly that you would practice that at your school. It was said earlier too, so that those kids have a job and it is appropriate and they are focused and they are organized. But as a judge, that should not be something that makes you give them last necessarily because it wasn't done as well as maybe somebody else. Okay, any questions so far? We good? Just raise your hands, I'm watching. All right, and then, like it was said earlier, the start over rule does exist. If there is something out of your control, you as a director should go to the tournament facilitator and say that this happened, it was out of our control, and you do have that opportunity to start over. All right, on to ballots. Feel good? Beautiful. So, I want to preface this with, I always strive to make my kids the best possible. And in that, I show them a lot of examples that are out there that are great theater. And our kids are watching great theater. There's so much available online that they can see that makes them or drives them to be a better actor, a better technician, a better overall performer for you. And so I always say, look at those examples and try to grow. Now, what I'm going to show you here today is a lot of high quality clips, and most of them are Broadway, okay? I know we're not Broadway, and everybody always says, you probably have so much money to do the work that you do. I do not have a large budget, and I know most schools do not have a large budget, but what I strive to do is create that kind of theater that makes people say, wow, I want to do something like this. And where I looked to find that kind of theater is Broadway. And that's why it's so great that we can get online and we can come up with a lot of different examples to show our kids and to grow as directors ourselves. So, when you're looking at our ballot, reminder that acting is worth 50 points and technical is worth 10. So like Cheryl did earlier, kind of assigning 10 points to each part of the ballot breaks it down really well. But again, emphasizing that when you are one of those 3 judges and you are there and you are trying to send a play to state or a play, conference or whatever, wherever you are at, the emphasis of your ballot is on the acting portion. Okay? And here's what that breakdown should be. And you'll be talking to some people around you here in a minute. Oh, and we went too far. All right, so your voice. Now, I have ballots and I have rubrics that we're going to cover here. But when you look at voice, and I think voice can be kind of seen in 2 different forms. Voice to me is, yes, I want to hear you, and I need to hear everyone. But also voice is that character, that person that each of these kids are trying to create is also a voice. And you need to find who these people are, and that takes research. And that takes those kids working behind the scenes to develop that character. And so when you are addressing voice as a judge, yes, you're looking at these, can I hear them? Can I understand them? Was there variety, inflection, intensity? Like, we have to teach kids that when you become an actor on stage with lines, it has to be a normal person. You have to develop a real person. And when you as a judge are looking in on voice for kids, they can't just be, a robot who has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. They have to become that person that they're trying to develop. So that emotional responsiveness piece to that is really where you need to weigh in. And are they saying the lines or are they feeling the lines when they get into these characters? I have just the superior pieces of the rubric in my slides, but when you are looking for the language to talk about as a judge, this is a great place to come to use this verbiage, these words in your critique. So, do they have dramatic and comedic elements? The vocal work is understood. To understand, when they convey that message to us, they get it, and then we get it, and then we emotionally can respond to it. So I'm going to show a clip here, and then I really look at voice and how they developed these 2 characters. We'll stop. We won't hear the song. Just stop when the music, they start singing.
Maybe you can give me a lift in West Dallas?
Sure.
You live in the devil's back porch. Not much longer. Well, I don't know anyone ever moved out of West Dallas. What do you do now? Clockwork. Fine, Parker. You got a beautiful smile. Bet you hear that all the time. Why, yes, I do. Me too. Where are you moving? Well, anywhere I want. Just like the legendary Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid? He was an outlaw.
All right, and you can cut there. Okay, turn to somebody next to you, just in voice. And I know the echo in here is a little off, but how did they convey characterization? Talk to somebody next to you. What comment would you make on the ballot with voice?
Does that work? By being Jeremy Jordan, does that just automatically make you good?
All right, positive or negative? I want 3 voice pieces. What's one? Pausing, right? And when we pause, we can take in what was said. Beautiful. What else? You're getting points back. Accents. And I promise you, they were a little muffled here, but their accent for the time period and the geographical location fit the character with clarity of the words. Because we have kids trying accents all the time, but they've got to speak in a way where we hear all of the syllables of all of the parts of the words. Last one.
Other nuances within speech, like, clapping or different internal things that aren't part of
That emotional responsiveness piece, absolutely. So they're reacting and feeling those lines, all coming across in voice. All right, perfect. So then, questions on voice. Beautiful. Then we go to characterization. And a lot of these clips can feed into one another, but trying to pick up specific dialogue with each of these. And they all come from different places. All right, so characterization. Were the characters believable? So, if a kid is up here and they're trying to be Bonnie and Clyde, did I remember them? Did I feel them? Do I feel like they're those historical people? Did they sustain? And that's the other part with this too. They might come out in scene 1 and be amazing, but do they still have that energy, that finesse, that overall character that they came and started the show with in that last moment, in those last scenes? And that takes a lot for kids. There's stamina that's required in acting. And those kids have to have that repetition in your rehearsals to continue and keep that stamina all the way through the show. They can't have an off moment. And if you see that off moment as a judge, you've got to say, scene 3, you really, dropped here. The character dropped, your face dropped. Maybe you don't understand that part as well as the beginning or as the end. So really look specifically to your actor and make sure that they are growing and sustaining throughout your piece. Were the actions and reactions of the characters effective? So that playing, and you have to show kids this. They know how to kind of naturally interact with each other in the hallways, even though I feel cell phones and all of that are getting in the way of it. But you have to teach them how to overplay some of that natural emotional reactions on the stage with the pausing. How would you convey that emotion to an audience? Because we're getting it secondhand. And when we get it secondhand in any production, we need a moment to let it sink in and to let us understand what's happening. And so those characters, they can't zoom through and at the end of it just say, and my lines are done, right? We need to understand what's happening and what those feelings are that on the stage. And then were the lines, then the physical action delivered in a way that seemed right for the play. So whatever kind of show you're trying to produce, It has to have that emotional reaction for us as a group. Okay, there's a lot here, and I'm not going to read this to you, but just take a minute and look at the characterization piece. And I'll bring this back up here in a minute. But there's a lot, again, really great word usage. A lot of us are English teachers. This is what I want to see on a ballot that comes back to me. I want you to comment on my characters, on their control, their believability, well rehearsed. Those are great things that we're striving for when we develop characters. And when we go home as directors, you need to do things with these characters other than them just running their lines. They need to know and do research. They need to see the history of the show, what's gone into it, and who these people are. And if they don't know it, we have to make it up. And they have to learn it and grow with the show, who this person is on the stage. So this one is from Hamlet. If you want to hit the clip.
Rosemary, that's for remembrance, praying love, remembering his pansies. That's for thoughts of human and madness, thoughts and remembrance fitted. There's fennel for you, and commonplace. There's room for you. There's room for you, and some for me. We may call it herb a grace, a Sundays. You must realize the difference. There's a daisy. I would give you violets, but they withered all when my father died. Oh, Betty, sweet Betty is all my joy. Thought and affliction, passion, how much substitutes to favor and to prettiness. I will hear come again. He will not come again. No, no, he is dead. Gone to his deathbed. His beard was white as snow. His hair like yellow gold. He is gone, he's gone, he's gone. As we cast away our love. God have mercy on his soul. And to all Christian souls, I pray God. God be with you.
You can stop it there. All right, again, talk to somebody next to you. What made those characters stand out or not stand out? Talk. 2 seconds.
Again, just be slow down. The talent. And conversation. And she crazy was just subtle. Yeah, and the subtlety of it is what makes it that much more unnerving because you're used to people going bananas.
All right, again, 3 things, positive or negative. Maybe even work in a little bit of this language. Characters on stage. What was positive or negative? Yes. To make Shakespeare work, it cannot be just the lines on the page. She has to build the emotion. She has to build the understanding. Great comment. 2 more things. Right here.
One of the things that I recognized was the action reaction, where some of them, like having that actress in the center be able to take control and having her co-actors and actresses just stand there and give her that space, almost like a boundary.
Absolutely.
That was a really great pairing into like reacting by not reacting.
And based on her relationship with those characters, how that understanding, acting, reacting happened. Because you could definitely see there was more emotional responsiveness from some than others. Almost embarrassment for how she was, becoming so overwrought with emotion. All right, one more.
100% physicality.
Thank you. Yes. And that we could do that blocking. Everybody in here can do that blocking. There wasn't even no levels in that blocking, but we saw every character, and she moved on every character, and every character responded to her in those moments. And that physical piece sold the lines to me more than anything. And for those of you that know this piece of Hamlet, she's not supposed to sing those lines, but she makes them song, because in her brain, that's what happens to her in her characterization. So that's when I know you've taken a character from the page to real life. And that variety piece happens, it jumps for us. All right, questions on characterization? Okay. All right, ensemble. And I want to stress here, ensemble is how people work together on the stage. Ensemble is your team, being a team on the stage. And that can be small ensemble, large ensemble. That was hit on earlier as well today. And we're going to see some pieces of variety with that. But when you are on the stage as a kid, and as a director, you're making the choice to put that kid on the stage. And if you've seen any of my shows, I put all the kids on the stage. All of them. But you've got to make sure, no matter who's on there, they have to be invested. They have to have purpose, and they can't figure that out for themselves. You, as a director, have to teach that to them. Why they're there, what their purpose is, and to sell that emotion. So, did they establish and maintain mood? To me, that is the best part of ensemble. They tell the story. If you watch an ensemble member, they're telling you how to react as an audience member. They're the ones selling the show, the movement of the show, the tempo of the show, and you're using them to give your audience the people that they're like. And I am more so reacting to what the ensemble does than any of the main stage actors, because that's who, for me, is telling the story more than anyone. So, was there a feeling of a polished performance? And this is hard. I think we all know this is hard. But if you have any amount of kids on the stage, are they working together? That takes a lot of rehearsal. That creativity piece, it comes from kids, it comes from you as a director. That judge can feed into that too, because you're sitting there saying, ooh, maybe try this. Ooh, let's do that. Ooh, that would be fun. Bring that up in critique. If you have ideas for their ensemble, for anything, you definitely need to tell them and show them that there's more creativity that can happen for you. And then that understanding of the material. That ensemble takes us to the next level, because they help us play into that understanding. And then this also hard, but it's a 30-minute show. And for some of us, especially as a director, that's not a lot of time. But to some of those kids, it's forever. And they're thinking about who's texting me, where am I going to eat after the show, what's happening in my life. Did they stay in this show the whole time and have that purpose? Okay, next slide. So, working together, imagination to establish the mood. I love that, imagination. To establish the mood and meaning of the play. Working together, creating a very polished performance, shows the evidence of organized rehearsal, creativity, again, creativity, a great word, and the understanding of the play. Now I want to show two pieces here and really look at the people that maybe aren't talking all the time. And what are they doing? And this can happen on both levels. So this is Hadestown, but watch what they do in the back. Okay, play.
Well, the good news is, he said that you can go. He did? He did? He did. There's bad news, though. What is it? You can walk, but it won't be like you planned.
What do you mean?
Why not? Well, you won't be hand in hand. You won't be arm in arm, side by side, and all of that. He said you have to walk in front, and she has to walk in back.
Wait.
And if you turn around to make sure she's coming too, then she goes back to Hadestown, and ain't nothing you can do. All right, time to go.
Excuse me, Holmes.
Yes. It's not a trick. No. It's a test. The meanest dog you'll ever meet. He ain't the hog dog in the street. He bears some teeth and tears some skin, but brother, that's the worst of him. Now the dog you really got to drink. It's the one that howls inside your head. It's him whose howling drives men mad, and the mind to its undoing.
Wait for me, I'm coming. Wait, I'm coming with you. Wait for me, I'm coming too. I'm coming. Show the way so we can see. Show the way the world can be. If you can do it, so can she. If she can do it, so can we. Show the way the world can be. Show the way so we believe. We will follow where you lead. We will follow if you show the way.
Think they'll make it.
Show the way.
Hades, you let them
Show the way. I let them try.
And how about you now?
Show the way.
We can try.
Show the way. It's time for spring. We'll try again next fall.
Wait for me.
I will. Wait for me. I'm coming. Wait, I'm coming with you. Wait for me. I'm coming too. I'm coming too. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Who are you? Who are you to the Who are you to leave them? Who are you to think that you can hold your head up high? You were so proud to walk, and they talked along the road trust, and they talked along the road to die. You walked 100 times before, and I'll tell you when it real was eyes. Between your ears, behind your eyes, that is the path to paradise. Likewise, the road to ruin. Wait for me. Show the way.
Alright, that's good. Alright, talk to somebody next to you. Ensemble. How did they drive the scene? Talk to a friend. They worked well together. That sense of being well rehearsed was definitely apparent. Okay? Right here?
Just like a small thing, I think, but it really caught me, especially at the beginning, just their eyelines.
Yeah.
They, you know, anytime you look at them in the background, they're looking into your foreground people, and like, oh, you can just snap right back to the foreground every time. Whereas like some other, like, it's something that's less intense, if they're looking at each other and they're creating texture, you're seeing something totally different. But they were just forcing your focus.
And they teach us as an audience, where should we pay attention? And wonderful picking that up right here.
This is yet a small thing too, but that sense of need, that sense of intensity, I was noticing the rising and falling of the show. You will always be just like that.
Right. Absolutely, completely together, yes. And then the message, like they're repeating to you the message of the whole production. And they're telling us this is important. You know, coming with you, I'm coming with you. Like your ensemble, it doesn't have to say a lot, but make it say the important things that you want us to remember. And it drives that piece all the way to whatever the end is for them. Now, what? Yes. And they create that mood together. All right, so now I'm going to take it. Now, that was a larger piece. Now, what does this look like when we don't have as many people on stage and we're more working together as an ensemble? Go for it.
This must be Charles Haverton. Take the body upstairs so I can examine it. Yes, Inspector! Now the radio is to the cause of death.
This is the play that goes wrong.
Strangulation, suffocation, poison. Before fully examining the body, I wouldn't like to say.
How could someone do it?
Try not to think about the events going on. As soon as I finish, speak to everyone individually, and then you can get some space to calm your nerves.
Thank you, Inspector. This is all more than I can bear.
I shall return presently, as soon as I finish examining the body.
She is a runner. The inspector will have some questions for you. You were Charles's brother, after all.
Well, do you have any questions for me, Inspector?
Yes. Yes. You and your brother, you get along well.
Up and down, there was rather more strain in our relationship when Father died, and it was certainly no secret that our father cared for Charlie more than myself.
I see. This is your father in the portrait, is it not?
It is.
He looks stiff Charles, doesn't he?
He did ever since he was quite young, yes.
You were the junior by 4 years.
Almost 4, and didn't I know it? Charles would patronize any man who You're suggesting I had something to do with his murder, then you're mistaken.
I see. It's a dark night,
Inspector!
All right, you can stop it there. Okay, but same thing, only now we're on a smaller scale. Talk to someone next to you. These invested people, how do they create ensemble? Okay, talk to your people, talk to your friend.
Oh, and they have their TV show. It's called The Goes Wrong Show. They have like 8 episodes. It's a pilot. They like build the set sideways, and then they get too small on accident. Like they ask when the big guy gets tired, he can't get out of the other door. They keep asking him, and they like to strap themselves into a dining room table, and they're like sideways. So they're just like leaning this way. They're trying to like make water, and it's like, oh my gosh. The bee, right?
All right, what could you write down on a ballot that talks about ensemble within, like they didn't have this massive group of people that were shifting focus or marching people from, Hadestown, but they had ensemble. What would you write? Give me 3. Right here. Absolutely. Body language and facial expressions are telling the story that is a little different than the story that's supposed to be unfolding. 2 more. Yes. Because with comedy, you've got to have a moment for us to get it, and we get to get it with them. So those pauses are so important, so we all understand the story and what should or should not be happening. Yes? Fantastic, right there. All actors are focused. And if they didn't do that, if they didn't sell that, the show would not be the show that it is. And if you haven't checked out the play that goes wrong, please do. It's very funny. You will laugh from moment to moment. It's a whole slew of horrible directorial elements that you hope never happen to you on the stage. All right, any questions with ensemble? Yes.
So I also played one of the main sentences had to do with the character's hat. He forgot to put the hat on. And I remember as judges, everyone in the audience knew.
The hat should be there, and the hat wasn't there.
But they never changed the line. He just kept saying the line, and I kept thinking, as a director, when you tell the students it's a play, something's going to go wrong.
Yep.
Someone's got to step up and redirect.
Yep.
Do you talk about that?
As a director, absolutely I talk about that. And I tell all of my kids that no show is the same every single time. And we have to be able to be quick on our feet. And so many times our kids have to pick up the slack for something. Like I've had a kid run off and throw up in a bucket and still come on for the next line. I've had a kid, we lost a hat right before state. Where did we go when we lost a hat right before state? We sure did. The bus pulled over at another school and we got a hat. Okay? It happens all the time. But you have to be the one as a director driving the, I'm not gonna panic, we're gonna find a solution, and then we're gonna keep going. And then those kids on the stage, I sit in the audience when it comes to watching my shows. I know I'm not probably amongst the majority who does that, but I sit, it's the kids show. And when the kids have that show on the stage, it is what it is. And so then I can tell kids what I thought went well or what didn't go well, and they're in control. So they know for that 30 minutes, they have to have the devices to solve the problems in those moments. All right, but then as a judge too, I would, like, let's take your hat comment, for example. If there is a specific part of the script and it's adhering to something that isn't present, anything as a judge that pulls me out of the reality that's supposed to be created on the stage, I feel like you have to comment to that, because I want to buy in for 30 minutes, and if something is distracting me from what that buy-in is, it's something your show has to throw in to make sure that that happens for anybody in the audience. I don't want to feel like I'm sitting in a chair. I want to feel like I'm on the stage with Hades and everyone marching. You know, that's what I want to feel as a judge. So try to strive for that, or comment to it if that's not happening for you and your cast. Okay, great comments, guys. Thanks for chiming in. I love the audience interaction. Okay, so timing is another piece. And timing can be individualized in these moments, but it also, and I'd say it's maybe the most important part of play production, is the tempo of your production. And tempo for me is probably the hot button word right here. Of course you're looking for kids to pick up cues, but I'd say that's your basic level judging there. The kids hopefully are rehearsed and they know line to line to line what's supposed to happen. But you as a director have to build a production that creates tempo. And if your show stays on a flat line the whole entire time and it doesn't build emotion, it doesn't build in each scene, it doesn't build in the whole production, that's something that we've got to look at as a judge, because you want the show to move and move in a way that makes you invested and you feel things. So tempo, and we've seen it in a couple of the other, the rate in which you talk. Of course, we have to hear people and understand people, but really feel the message of the show and the production. So, looking at the rubric, we of course have the delivered lines piece, but that tempo, stage business, and movements build the dramatic effect of the performance. Comedically or dramatically, right? Either way that we're going, I want to be able to put down my pen because I feel so much that's going on. And I love when a judge, writes on there that I have so much to say, but I just want to watch you. And that's the goal, I think, of every production, is we want to get these judges to a place where they feel so invested that they're a part of the action and the drama and everything that's going on stage. So within every scene, the moment pieces, we want to see that. So if you would click on the 39 steps clip.
Smell that heather. Makes you glad to be alive, doesn't it?
Lovely, yes.
Yes, we seem to be stuck.
Is that so? Hang on.
Look, if you go, right, then I will go, yes, that didn't work. Wait a minute, let's start again.
I say, what is the use of all this? Those policemen will catch you as soon as it's light, as soon as daybreak dawns.
They're not policemen.
Really? So when did you find that
yourself. I have no idea that was the wrong road to Inverary. They would take us to their boss with a little finger missing. And God help either of us if we ever meet him.
So you're still sticking to your penny novelette spy story?
Oh, 20 million women on this island and I have to be chained to you. Look, I'll say this one time. There's a dangerous conspiracy against this island, and we are the only people who can stop it.
The gallant knight to the rescue!
All right, you're alone on a desolate moor, in the dark, manacled to a plain common murderer who stabbed an innocent, defenseless woman 4 days ago and can't wait to get you.
Save big, Monday through Sunday, high beat. On Natural Chicken Breast, just
All right.
$3.88.
You want to? Oh, it's over.
So, was that rehearsed?
Sorry.
Was that a rehearsed scene? Yes, right? So many times we tell kids to just do it, wing it, go for it. To get the comedic elements out of that moment, and it was purely just a moment in the show, that had to be blocked for every turn and twist and you go over and you go under to make comedy happen. And so when you're talking about timing, you've got to give time for that to happen so we can feel it, so it comes back to us. And that means individual rehearsals as directors to get to that point to make those scenes happen in timing. Now, I also like to think of tempo throughout that whole production. So when you think of your show, so many times we see these trailers, right? We should go and see this movie because of this trailer, or we should go to this Broadway show because of this trailer. If you were to do a 1-minute trailer of your show, would it have the build and the tempo of what you want your audience to feel overall? Many of you have seen Wicked. If you haven't, please go. But does your show feel like this? Hit the Wicked one. To me, I think of like every show that I do has 5, 6, 7 scenes. If I did that with my show and did like snippet, 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 and it builds right to that big alpha moment where we're up there with the, with my broom, I feel like I've accomplished tempo. Like I have a show that has a dramatic opener, I have a show that has scenes leading up to a climax, and then I have a show with an impactful ending. And as a judge, you want to feel that too. Now here also as a judge, that's where shows can have an off day. Because you can have a show at the beginning of the season if you're like me and maybe you see a show a couple times during the season and it has really great tempo in one, but then you potentially don't see it, later in it. Maybe that has shifted or altered. Of course, it shouldn't affect your judging. But like you as a director have to push your kids to continue to develop that tempo. Because we want that show to be as exciting every single time. Think of Wicked on Broadway, 8 times a week. And everybody's paying hundreds of dollars for a ticket. When they get in that room to watch that show, they want it to be the big, humongous, impactful audience, invested production that they paid for. Even on our small scale stages, our moms and dads and our judges and everyone want the same thing. And even kids, like kids who come and they watch, and I highly recommend if you are taking kids to tournaments, put them in the audience so they can learn from everybody else who's doing all of these stage productions, because every show can teach kids how to get better, every single one. And I as a director, same thing. I love to watch other directors and what they do on stage because that's what teaches me to be a better director. But tempo for me is what makes or breaks a show as a judge. And are they selling it and pushing the whole entire embodiment of the production? Yes.
This is something that's got to be understood and felt early in the production. They have to know where they're heading. And there are so many times I don't know that they know where to build and to climax, and it really is lacking.
Right.
They don't have it.
And I think those kids, you need to record those kids, they need to watch themselves, and the director needs to drive that.
And whether they even understand, or are they just doing it?
Right.
They've got to feel it, and the audience has got to feel it.
And it's hard, even, like I know we've extended our season, right? But like when you start at the beginning of November and you're doing your show, getting those kids to still be as excited to do it in December, you need to add things to the show, you need to change it up a little bit, you need to switch some things around. You've got to keep making it exciting, keep your rehearsals exciting, do different things that makes the material new and fresh. So, all things but tempo for me, that tempo and pacing, really an important part of the ballet. All right, and then we go into production. So, production here, you've got your staging pieces. And we, as judges, kind of have to look at, can I see everyone? Do I know what's happening? Are we all in this? So we have to have that unity of style. So if you're going to do the 20s, you have to do the 20s in voice. You have to be in character, in costume, in staging, in production. Like, I have to feel the environment that you're trying to create. Then we get into creative blocking, and I mean, I can talk to you, many of us can talk to you for hours on blocking and staging, and I don't have that much time, hardly any time at all. But we have got to look at our groupings that enhance the blocking, and then take into effect lights, makeup, props, and scenery as a part of the production. But does all of this create the environment to make your production shine overall? That's what you need to do. And so many people get lost in the money piece of this. Don't get lost in the money piece. You can do this. I dumpster dived with my kids, and we have found phenomenal things. We have people in town that are willing to donate. We have lots of pieces from previous shows that we've used. Like, just know what your resources are and then utilize them as much as possible in your shows and productions. But make sure, and we already covered that, but do not lower those ratings or rankings for technical difficulties. And then for me, this is really directorially driven, and I give the kids my vision and my tools, and then they have to come up with what does that look like for them in design. And this is where you can really pull in your crew kids from shop classes. I have a lot of my tech kids from our computer classes. To me, every kind of kid can be in one act because we need every kind of brain to make a one act happen. And so really search for, because those are the kids that aren't necessarily going to walk through your door. The actors are, but not necessarily, you know, your shop guy. So you need to go out and you need to search for them. Now, from the judging side of it, looking at the imagination and the blocking. You do not have to have a gigantic set for this to work, but what you have to do is whatever piece that you've selected, how do we create reality within the staging components? And then I've got a couple of things to go with for this. Maybe. There. Okay, so again, Broadway, but staging. If you were doing this show, I mean, it is a table and chairs. That's all that they needed. Now, this could just be a couple people sitting around a table, but it's not, right? When you are looking at staging, I get to see almost everybody's face. We have one guy kind of covered up right here, but I know he exists. Their eyes are focused on where we're supposed to be looking. You've got reactions that are, I would say, different yet purposeful. And then we know that right here is where we should be looking. Okay? All a matter of blocking, staging. You've got your costumes that fit the period. And I feel the reality happens. Now, in comparison, can you go to the next picture? She left. Of course she did. Okay. There we go. Okay. So then we have still costumes, our period. We still have some sense of blocking, lighting, we see everyone's face. But what could grow here? What's that? Levels, absolutely. What else would you potentially say needs to grow here? Facials, maybe some potential, like spreading people out, body language, right? It seems pretty stagnant. When we go from that, where we kind of have, I'd say, a splattering of different emotions to something, and it was a very serious scene, but we go to this, that seems, I would say, could have a little bit more to it. Okay, and then in direct response, and I've got a couple of these pictures, but go to the next one, yeah, and that's the show that we watched. Sorry, guys. Go back one more if you're back there. There you go. All right. So high comedy happening, lots of different leveling, lots of different reactions. Even perspective is shifted with, where's my eye focus and what piece of drama am I needing to focus on because there's so much happening in this scene. But there's intention all over it. And great use of colors, great use of levels, those kinds of pieces. And then we go here, and again, this scene could be just them standing around Beetlejuice, and they're all in the same costume, all in the same effect, but just the slight altering of their facials makes that picture really stand out. And I don't think any kind of, levels, it was just them crouching and hiding and twisting and turning, but you can still create a lot of really cool effect by just placing them creatively with imagination around your central focus. All right, and then you get to the overall effect piece. So that effective piece in production, can we have effective theater? Is there a sense of completeness in the production? Were people emotionally invested? And I think you can see through the production piece, through what those actors are trying to do, if that's happening or not. But you want to look at those pictures and you want to look at that staging and you want to make sure that every scene has as much invested as, the next scene. Where I lose a little bit, I love the opening and I love the closing, I love the climax, but you also have to make the other scenes as interesting and necessary as those wow pow moments when I've got 50 kids on stage. How is that, when I pare it down to 3, still as intricate and neat? And as a director and as a judge, I need to feel something in all of the scenes that you're trying to do to keep the tempo of the production going. And that's just your unity piece. Or overall effectiveness. Okay, that's a lot of things, but I only have a couple more minutes. Well, I have like 20. Anything I can answer so far? I've got one more chunk of this because we have critique. Feeling good? Okay. All right, so this is a little bit more for my directors in the room. If you're just a judge, your stuff is coming to you really quickly. But when you get to verbal critique, which for those of you that don't know, after you perform, you need to take your students to a room, and in that room, the judges will address things that they liked, things that they may potentially need to work on, but critique, it follows every production. And in that place, I feel, for me, I want those kids to be as invested in those judges and what they're saying as they were on the stage. So I have and practice critique with my kids. I can bring in lots of different director friends that come in, and we will run through that process, even just how they sit, how they listen, how do they attentively, come into that room. I never allow any cell phones or anything like that come into that room, because these kids should be learning and growing from that educational response. And I also, for those that are kind of going into this, we've got the leaders, and I have captains in my team, but I will put kind of those leaders of your production at the front. A lot of times those judges want to talk to those leaders, and so if they can see girl in the red dress and she's sitting right there, then they know who to talk to or ask questions to. Try to get there as quickly as possible, but you do have to get your set off of the stage, and from there, put your main characters in front, tell your students to keep your answers to a minimum, because we want the judges to talk more than the kids. Tell those kids they need to sit quietly and listen to those suggestions. As a director, we'll work with that content later when we get back to rehearsals. All right, so as a judge, when you were walking into critique, and a lot of people, this is where they get a little bit more anxiety driven, I would say. So this is a skill that I would say you could practice as well. Go to your friend's school, watch their show, and do those kind of partner critiques. Have or shadow someone out there who does critiques a lot, and they will help you get better at this. But for me, I've had a ton of people come to our competition and just sit there and kind of want to watch, and they'll write ballots, and then they'll either go in and listen to critiques to try to get better at them, or we'll talk about it. So lots of different ways for you as a judge to grow in this element, but I love the critique part, and I think there's kind of a finesse to it to make it powerful. So when you go into critique, remind the team that you are there to help them get better, and hopefully directors are telling them that as well. This isn't supposed to be something where kids walk away feeling horrible. It should be a place of growth. And we want to remind the team that the director has the overall say, that you are just providing suggestions to hopefully help them become the best team possible. Also, make sure you introduce yourself. They just like to know your name and where you potentially come from. All right, when you get into a critique, for me, energy matters. And I know as a judge, your day is long and you have a lot on your mind, especially how you're going to rank and rate these things. But what that kid really remembers is the energy they put on the stage, and then the energy that you give them back in that room. So when you walk in, no matter what level of show this is, be excited to be there, because they want to see you, and they are trying their best in a school that has the program of programs, and you are trying to be an energetic person. So please walk in with some sort of energy. And then from there, your approach will be everything to that kid and that director. So they should not walk out of that room defeated, but they should be inspired to get better, because every show can get better, no matter who you are. And then always, always, always find something positive in every production and share it verbally with excitement. And I have a couple strategies here on how to do that. That team, no matter who they are, they're trying to work hard and they're trying to put on a show, and we all know how hard that is. So you as a judge need to give them the hope that they can get better in what they're doing. And it might not be this year, but even subsequent years, directors too, you're building up that director to be the next director for the next year as well. So remember that, so that they can take what you give them and grow from that as well. So some things that you could do when you are in a critique, some things that I do when I'm in a critique, I'd say to kids that you can pull them up on your feet and you can act things out. Can we go over scene 2? This part right here, I didn't necessarily understand it. Can we kind of go over that? Have them play around with some things if you have ideas. And it's okay, you can illustrate that on a board. You could also say, I'll email you later, potentially, if I have other ideas. Begin with something exciting. At the top of your critique, when you walk in that room, you need to start with, there's something, I know there's something, that's good. And so you gotta find what you found impactful and begin the critique with that. Highlight, I always pick out somebody, and I love to pick out an ensemble kid that has no lines, and say, you right there, I noticed you, and I saw you, and I thought you did a great job. And that kid just beams, because you saw them in the back doing what they were doing. Definitely always comment on some technical piece that stood out as well. I have technical kids in the room, and they are hungry to hear something about the lights that was good, something about the sound that was good, or the set. So I wouldn't say it has to be, completely the whole critique, but don't forget the tech when you were talking critique. Address the director on something you felt in their vision was good. I think we all know as directors, we're sitting there and you get there and you are stressed. But to have somebody say something kind about your show makes you feel amazing. And if it was something you felt you did in the production, or you saw that vision, like that comes back on you and it helps that director grow as well. Always address areas of concern if there's things that are underdeveloped. I never go into critique and I say it's perfect, because it's not. You need to go in there and give them things to do at the next rehearsal. Look at this, that, or whatever, because those kids want to get better and grow from there. Provide some potential solutions if you've got them, or just say, hey, look, this one scene right here, I just wanted more from it. And they'll go home and play with it. And then I love to close a critique with a challenge for the students to enhance that production. I always love to say, it's here, but I know it can get here. And you can go home and find ways to make it grow in that way. And then at the end, always remind kids that all things are possible. Motivate that team for whatever incredible things, strides that they can make. And also remember you're educating directors too, so help them grow as well. And then thank them for the work in promoting art, because that's a big piece of this as well, is we're making our future adults appreciate the arts, and we want that. Okay, and then that's what I've got. Are there any questions?
How do you handle a judge that comes in the room and goes, this is the stupidest play in the whole thing, stupid this, stupid that?
You tell me, and they will never judge you again.
I mean,
That's exactly right. Taryn said, you call Taryn.
it was so sad.
So she said, how do you handle a judge that comes into a room and says, this is the stupidest play I've ever seen, these are the stupidest things I've ever seen, stupid, okay. You sit there, you take it, unfortunately, and then you send Taryn an email or a phone call, and she will address it. There are judges that Taryn has talked to, the NSAA has talked to previously because of their conduct, and they have been put on probation because of that
And then the
conduct.
two judges come in and it was like close window.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
It's hard to explain that to teenage kids.
It is.
You never told these kids to go stupid, and then for 15 minutes they're called stupid, everybody walks out of it.
I would say, so she's saying, how do you explain this to kids? And what I tell kids is when we go into critique, when a judge is in the midst of all of their emotions about our productions, lots of things come out, right? And maybe they even say things potentially that they don't mean. And so when I say that that person is human and they're standing in front of you and they say those words, we're always going to go home and we're going to talk about it. And unfortunately, some of those comments that come out maybe are just from a judge that they're not as educated as they should be. Other questions? Taryn will handle it. They should be judging, I'm sure. All right. Okay. Well, if that is all we've got, thank you everyone. And really, I'm stressing, I really would love you to be a judge. The NSAA wants you to be a judge. Please sign up to judge, because our activity only grows if you add to it. So thank you for being here today, and have a great season.